Hi, Matt Battiata here. Today we're going to talk about how to negotiate an offer on your home. So you've listed your home with a real estate agent, the house, you've had it on the market, who knows, hopefully not too long, and you have an interested buyer and you get an offer on the house. So these are the things that you want to make sure that your agent does when they're negotiating the offer. So hopefully when they submitted the offer, they submitted a proof of funds. Hopefully before they even showed the house, your agent had them submit proof of funds and also a pre-approval letter, okay? The proof of funds shows that they have enough money for the down payment if they're getting a loan and putting, say, 5, 10, 20% down or more. So we want to see that they actually have enough money in the bank or in stocks and bonds or wherever that they can actually make the down payment that they need to make in order to get their loan. If they're paying cash, we want to make sure that they have enough cash to cover the purchase of the home for a cash offer. But let's say they're getting a loan in this scenario. Hopefully before your agent even let them in the door, the buyer's agent or the buyer, if they didn't have an agent, provided you with proof of funds and a pre-approval letter. So let's just say we have that. Now they've submitted an offer. And let's say for the time being, they submitted a full price offer, which is wonderful, and they're the only offer on the table. Now, when we have multiple offers, and we'll talk about this in a different video, when we have multiple offers, we can obviously do different things to bid up the price, and that's always the best case scenario. But let's say in this scenario, you just have the one offer on the table. They've submitted a pre-approval letter and the proof of funds, but there are still some things that we always want to counter out because there are a lot of other aspects to an offer besides just the price. So in this case, it's a full price offer. First thing is we want to make sure that the buyers are qualified. Now, yes, they submitted a pre-approval letter, but we don't know how good that loan officer is who wrote that letter. For example, they may have not done a thorough pre-qualification. So they may, for all we know, they're not qualified. So what I always do is I always have my lender, who I work with, who I've worked with for years and is very good at what he does. I always have him pre-qualify the buyers. We call it a cross-qualification. So these are all things that you would put on a counteroffer. So I'll put on the counteroffer that acceptance of this offer is subject to the buyer and or the buyer's lender cross-qualifying the buyer with seller's direct lender within 48 hours of acceptance. What does that mean? That means we're not going to take the word of the buyer's agent and or the loan officer that this person is actually qualified. I don't care who the buyer uses for their financing. I don't care if they go through their bank, a mortgage company, a mortgage banker, hard money lender, makes no difference to me. I just want to make sure that they're actually qualified. So it's called a cross qualification, and that's number one because you do not want to get into a binding contractual relationship with someone, with a buyer, if they're not qualified. You don't want to go 3 weeks down the road to find out that the buyer doesn't actually qualify. Maybe they have child support liens on them, they have IRS liens, who knows. So first thing is we want to make sure that they're qualified, and so that always is going to go on a counteroffer. That way we know for certain that the buyer is qualified, okay? They can still cancel, we'll get to that in a minute, but we know they're not going to cancel because they didn't qualify. We know they qualify to buy the home. They have the money and they qualify. So that's number one. Number two, we're going to limit all the contingency periods. Now, we hardly ever take a contingent offer, meaning it's contingent on the buyer selling their home, unless they've got their home already in escrow and they've got all their buyers' contingencies removed. Then we would take a contingent offer. But there are other contingencies when a buyer makes an offer. So there's a contingency for the buyer doing their due diligence, which means they have a certain period of time to review all the seller disclosures. They have a certain amount of time to do their home inspection. They have a certain amount of time to have their lender come out and do an appraisal. They have a certain amount of time to remove their loan contingency. Those are all different contingencies, not contingent on selling their home, but these are all contingencies that are usually in every offer. So unless the buyer's paying cash, there's a loan contingency and an appraisal contingency. The buyer's agent, when they make an offer, they can check a box on an offer that says that the buyer's loan contingency remains in effect until the buyer's loan funds. Well, if we have a 30-day escrow, the buyer's loan does not fund until day 29 or day 30, which means the buyer can call us up and cancel on day 28, and we have absolutely no recourse. We have to give them back their deposit. So in every scenario, we are going to put in writing that all the buyer's contingencies, their inspection contingency, appraisal contingency, loan contingency, all of their contingencies will be removed within a reasonable time period. So for example, 14 days at the most, maybe 12 days, maybe 10 days. That's plenty of time for a buyer to do their due diligence, review seller disclosures, do a home inspection, have their lender come out and do an appraisal. But we want to limit that time period. Once we get, let's just say we make it 12 days. After 12 days, the buyer literally must sign a form that says, I am hereby removing all of my contingencies, and I realize that by signing this document, if I do not follow through and buy this home within the time frames I'm supposed to buy it, let's say it's 30 days, I realize I lose my deposit. Okay? So very, very important. Which brings us up to the next topic, which is, guess what? The buyer's deposit. Now, I'm in San Diego, California. I sell homes all over Southern California, sometimes in Northern California. But in California, the maximum earnest money deposit that a seller can keep from a buyer is 3% of the purchase price. So in every scenario, we want a 3% deposit. So what is that? If it's $1 million purchase price, that's $30,000. If it's $2 million, that's $60,000. There's no real reason to get more than that because the maximum the seller can keep is 3% of the purchase price. But we want to get that amount. You'd be amazed how many offers we see coming in from buyers who are putting a $5,000 deposit. You know, on a $1 million purchase, maybe it's $5,000 or $10,000. That's not enough skin in the game for the buyer. So in all cases, we want a real deposit. We want 3% earnest money deposit. And that's the money once we get to an accepted offer, goes into escrow. And then once the buyer's contingencies are removed, that 3% is non-refundable. Now, a buyer can always fight if they cancel after their contingency period. They can always say, well, I want my deposit back, but they will lose their deposit. You might have to take them to mediation and arbitration. The other way to go in a case like that is you can put in writing that once the buyer removes their contingencies, their deposit is released as liquidated damages to the seller. And if they don't buy the house, they lose that money. So these are all things, even in the case of a full price offer, that we always want to counter out. So we'll do some other videos about multiple offers and so forth, but that's how you handle a single offer. Again, like, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video.